Jake the Snake Roberts was pinned flat on his back, completely trapped under 7 feet and 4 inches of pure Andre the Giant. He could not move. He could not breathe. A legendary stench filled the air around his face for 30 solid seconds. He farted in my face. That was the welcome Andre gave him. That was Andre's brutal, embarrassing, unforgettable way of saying hello to one of wrestling's greatest competitors. But hold on, because this story is just the beginning. If you haven't already, give this video some hype right now, and I promise you the rest of what we are about to explore will blow your mind. This is not just one welcome. This is the story of 10 legendary welcomes, 10 wild tests of character that Andre the Giant used to separate the real wrestlers from the pretenders. From crazy road stories to strength displays that still make people shake their heads in disbelief, Andre created a gauntlet that every single legend had to survive. Welcome to the complete countdown of the funniest and most shocking Andre the Giant welcome stories ever told. Andre was not just a wrestler. He was the gatekeeper of an entire era. During the transition from the old regional territory days to the Global World Wrestling Federation, the locker room needed someone who could remind the new generation about respect, tradition, and accountability. Andre was that man. He stood over 7 feet tall. He weighed more than 500 pounds. He was the ultimate authority, and his approval could make or break a career. These 10 stories are the proof of how Andre tested everyone who came his way. Understanding these welcomes means understanding an entire lost world of professional wrestling. A time before corporate structure, before lawyers, before social media. This was wrestling in its rawest form, when men lived on the road together, when trust was earned through trials, and when the locker room had its own code of law. Andre Roussimoff was the keeper of that law. Let us dive in and see which welcomes made wrestling legends laugh, cry, and never forget who was in charge. Number 1, Bad News Brown and the Backbone Test. Bad News Brown, whose real name was Alan Coage, was a legitimate tough guy in every sense of the phrase. He was a bronze medalist in judo from the 1976 Olympics, one of the few wrestlers on the circuit who had actually trained in legitimate combat sports. This man did not back down from anyone, and he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who knew how to fight. But Andre wanted to see if even a warrior like Brown could be shaken. He wanted to know if Brown's toughness was real, or if it was just a wrestling character. During a tour in Japan, the wrestlers were on a bus together, traveling between shows. These bus rides were legendary. They lasted for hours, sometimes entire days, with wrestlers packed together in close quarters, tired, sore, and already worn down from the previous night's matches. Andre started making jokes about the ghetto. He used language that was racially charged and deeply insulting. This was not funny. This was cruel. It was a test, a sick way of checking if Brown would submit to Andre's dominance or if he would stand his ground and fight back. The bus got quiet. Everyone was watching to see what Brown would do. Would he ignore it? Would he laugh it off? Would he challenge the 7'4" giant? Brown did not hesitate for a single second. He told the bus driver to stop the vehicle immediately. He turned to Andre and challenged the 7'4" giant to step outside and fight one-on-one right there on the side of the road in Japan. Andre could have crushed him. He could have ended Brown's career with a single punch. He could have destroyed Brown's entire body. Instead, Andre laughed. He looked at Brown with genuine respect and he said, "I like this one." In that moment, everything changed. Brown had passed the test by refusing to be disrespected, by being willing to fight the most powerful man in professional wrestling rather than accept humiliation. Andre respected courage more than anything else in the world. The story shows that Andre was not just looking to humiliate people or show his dominance. He was looking for wrestlers who had the guts to protect their own dignity, even if it meant standing up to the biggest man in the world. He was searching for backbone, for real character, for men who would not bend no matter how much pressure was applied. That bus ride became the moment when Andre and Bad News Brown transformed from adversaries into mutual admirers. Number 2, Arnold Skaaland and the Hidden Car. Arnold Skaaland was a veteran road agent with decades of experience in professional wrestling. He was a man with dignity, someone who had traveled the circuit in the territorial days when wrestling was even more chaotic and rough than it became in the Federation era. Road agents were the men who planned the matches, who worked with both wrestlers before they stepped into the ring, who made sure the show ran smoothly night after night. Stalin was respected by everyone, but Andre loved to play pranks that demonstrated his raw, unmatched strength in ways that simple wrestling moves could never capture. The pranks were not meant to be mean-spirited or destructive. They were Andre's way of showing the world what he could do that no other human being could ever do. These were displays of strength that existed outside the context of professional wrestling, proof that Andre was not just a bigger wrestler, but a fundamentally different kind of physical specimen. Arnold came out of his hotel one day looking for his car. It was gone. He panicked. Had it been stolen? Had it been towed? Then he looked more carefully at the parking lot. There, wedged into a space so impossibly tight between two trucks that you could not even open the car doors, was his vehicle. Andre had picked up the back end of the entire automobile and slid it into the gap with the precision of someone moving furniture in a dollhouse. The door handles were pressed hard against the metal sides of the trucks. There was no way to open them, no way to drive it out, no way to reverse it back into the open. Andre had created an automotive puzzle that only he could solve. Stalin stood there staring, unable to do anything but laugh. Andre was sitting nearby, just whistling and grinning like he had not done anything unusual at all, like moving a 2-ton vehicle with his bare hands was as simple as moving a chair. This story highlights Andre's incredible strength in a way that numbers and statistics just cannot capture. He could manipulate physical reality in ways that seemed to defy the laws of nature. For the veterans like Stalin, this welcome was a stark reminder that Andre was not just a performer or an attraction. He was a physical force that could not be managed, contained, or reasoned with. He was a walking example of power that had no limits. Other stories circulated about Andre doing similar things. He allegedly flipped a car over in Montreal because its occupants had annoyed him. He bent steel railings just to see if he could. These were not the actions of a normal wrestler. These were the actions of someone who existed in a different category entirely. Number 3, Bobby Heenan and the balcony hen. Bobby the Brain Heenan was Andre's manager and one of his closest friends in the locker room. Heenan was a genius at his job. On television, he was the voice of Andre, the man who did the talking while Andre just stared menacingly. He was quick-witted, funny, and he knew how to make Andre look like the most dangerous force in wrestling. Their partnership became legendary. But being Andre's friend did not mean you were safe from his pranks. If anything, it made you a bigger target because Andre knew Heenan would not hold a grudge afterward, that they could laugh about it later. One day, they were in a hotel on the 10th floor. Andre walked over to his manager and picked him up by his belt like Heenan was a suitcase. He lifted Heenan up off the ground and carried him to the window. Then he held him out over the edge. Heenan was screaming. He was yelling for his life. Down below, the ground was 10 stories down. One slip, one moment of losing grip, 1 second of Andre deciding to let go, and Heenan was finished. He would fall to his death. There was no net, there was no safety. There was nothing between Heenan and the ground except air and gravity. But Andre was giggling. He was laughing like a schoolgirl, finding the whole thing hilarious. He said, "You like the view, boss?" Heenan was genuinely terrified, but he was also laughing in a hysterical sort of way because he knew, deep down, that Andre would not actually hurt him. Still, there was no guarantee. There was no contract that could protect him. Andre was holding his life literally in his hands. This prank reveals something deeply uncomfortable about the manager and wrestler relationship in professional wrestling. On television, Heenan was the brain, the smart manager who controlled Andre and called the shots. In reality, his entire career and safety depended entirely on Andre's mood, Andre's whim, Andre's decision to be merciful. Andre was the ultimate power. He was not just bigger and stronger, he held Heenan's fate in his literal hands. This prank was a stark reminder of who was actually in charge, of the real hierarchy that existed behind the scenes. No amount of talking, no amount of clever words, no amount of on-screen authority could change the fundamental reality that Andre could do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted, and no one could stop him. Number 4, Iron Sheik and the 100 Beer Challenge. The Iron Sheik was one of the toughest wrestlers on the touring circuit. He came from a different wrestling tradition with a different kind of toughness. He was not trained in American wrestling schools. He came from the old-school wrestling territories with their own brutal codes. But Andre wanted to test if the Sheik could keep up with his partying and his drinking, if he had the constitution to run with the giant when the wrestling was over and the real celebration began. Andre used alcohol for two distinct reasons. First, it was a social lubricant that helped the wrestlers bond after long, brutal nights of performing. The road was lonely. The matches were painful. Wrestling someone new every single night for 300 nights a year was exhausting both physically and mentally. Alcohol helped wrestlers forget about their pain and their exhaustion. It helped them laugh together and build friendships that would last their entire lives. Second, alcohol helped Andre deal with the chronic pain from his acromegaly, the condition that made him grow so large. His body ached constantly. His joints screamed. His back was failing him. Every movement was difficult. The beer helped numb that pain, at least temporarily. To be part of Andre's inner circle, you had to be able to drink with him. You had to have the physical tolerance to match a man whose body was so massive that normal limits did not apply to him. The Sheik recalls that Andre told him to drink or go home. Andre consumed 100 beers in a single night. 100. Not over the course of a week or a month. In one night. The Sheik tried to keep up but nearly died in the attempt. Andre watched him struggle and just looked amused, like he was watching a child try to drink from a fire hose. According to calculations, 100 12-ounce beers is approximately 9.37 gallons of liquid. For a normal-sized human being, that volume of liquid would be absolutely fatal. A person would die from the alcohol poisoning alone, or from the sheer volume of liquid expanding their stomach beyond its breaking point. For Andre, whose body was 3 times the normal size, it was just another night. The Sheik watched in amazement as Andre drank 100 beers and then looked at the Sheik like he was a baby who had barely touched his first sip of milk. This was not a contest the Sheik could ever win. This was Andre proving that he operated on a completely different level from everyone else. His body, his tolerance, his strength, everything about him was beyond the normal human range. This welcome was Andre's way of saying, if you want to run with me, you need to accept that you will never be my equal. You can try, but you will always fall short. I am not just a bigger wrestler, I am a different species. Number 5. Gorilla Monsoon and the Wet Welcome. Gorilla Monsoon was a giant in his own right. He was massive, strong, and one of the cornerstones of the World Wrestling Federation's early administration. Monsoon had authority and respect. He was not some young wrestler who needed to be taught a lesson. He was not a rookie trying to make a name for himself. Monsoon was an elder statesman of the business, someone who had earned his place through years of hard work and smart decisions. But even Monsoon was not immune to Andre's desire to treat the entire world as his personal playground. Andre saw everyone, regardless of their rank or position, as potential targets for pranks that would remind them of his power and his control. One day, Monsoon was officiating a match while Andre was wrestling. Andre decided that the proceedings needed a little freshness, a little reminder that nothing was too serious, that the business was ultimately about entertainment and having fun. He walked over to the water cooler and took a huge gulp of water. Then he walked over to Gorilla Monsoon and the referee, and without any warning or permission, Andre showered them both with water. He thought it was the funniest thing in the world. Monsoon and the referee were soaking wet, dripping water, looking absolutely ridiculous in front of the entire crowd. But here is the thing that made this story legendary. You could not get mad at Andre. What were you going to do? Challenge him? Threaten him? Report him to the office? No, you just got wet and laughed along with everyone else, including Andre. You had no choice but to participate in his prank, to become part of his entertainment. This story reveals a more playful side of Andre's character, a side that balanced out the intimidation and the fear. He was not always cruel or mean-spirited. He was someone who used humor to relieve the stress of traveling 300 days a year, living out of suitcases, wrestling in a different city almost every single night. The travel schedule was insane. Wrestlers were on a bus or a car constantly. They performed night after night with no days off. Their bodies were destroyed. Their minds were worn thin. By treating a senior figure like Monsoon as a prop and showering him with water, Andre was reminding everyone that the ring was his domain, his playground. But he was doing it with a sense of fun and humor that made people smile instead of cringe. It showed that Andre valued laughter as a tool for survival on the road, that humor was as important as toughness when it came to making it in this business. Number 6, Bam Bam Bigelow and the Fat Boy Slap. Bam Bam Bigelow was introduced to the World Wrestling Federation as a monster heel, a huge wrestling machine who was supposed to intimidate everyone in his path. Bigelow was genuinely massive, with incredible size and power for any wrestler on the roster. He was strong, athletic for his size, and he had a presence that demanded respect. He looked like a monster because he was a monster. When he walked out, people believed he could destroy anyone. But Andre felt it necessary to define what a real monster looked like, to make sure that Bigelow understood there was a hierarchy even among the biggest men in wrestling. During Bigelow's first week with the company, Andre decided to deliver a physical welcome. It came in the form of a chest chop. This was not a light chop meant to be a joke. This was a full power shot from a man who could move mountains. Bigelow, despite his own massive size and strength, was completely stunned by the force of the blow. He felt his entire rib cage light up with pain. The impact was so powerful and so loud that it sounded like a gunshot going off in the arena. The crowd gasped. Everyone in the locker room heard it and understood what was happening. Andre looked Bigelow dead in the eye and said, "Welcome, fat boy." Those words hit Bigelow as hard as the chop had hit his chest. He suddenly realized that no matter how big he was, no matter how much muscle he carried on his frame, Andre was bigger and stronger. More importantly, Andre had something that Bigelow did not have yet: seniority, tenure, and the respect of the entire locker room. Andre was asserting a hierarchy where years of tradition and proven respect mattered infinitely more than the size of your gimmick or how impressive your physique looked. Bigelow knew right then and there that he was at the bottom of the ladder. He had to earn his way up through hard work, through respect, and through proving himself worthy of the fraternity that Andre guarded so carefully. The chop was a lesson that could not be taught through words alone. Number 7, Macho Man Randy Savage and the baby oil incident. Macho Man Randy Savage was known for his flamboyant costumes, his wild interviews, and his habit of covering his body in excessive amounts of baby oil. The oil made his muscles look bigger and more defined under the bright arena lights. It created a sheen that made his physique pop on television and in person. Savage was a perfectionist about his appearance, and the baby oil was part of his complete image. He had calculated every element of his presentation down to the last detail. But Andre absolutely detested baby oil with a passion that went beyond simple preference. The oil made the ring slippery and dangerous, which meant wrestlers could get hurt more easily during matches. But that was not even the main issue for Andre. More importantly for Andre, the baby oil was a personal nightmare that made his life significantly harder. Andre was too large for standard hotel showers. His frame could not fit under a normal shower head. Cleaning himself required a labor-intensive process involving buckets of water carried by hotel staff who had to fill bucket after bucket and pour the water over him. If he was covered in someone else's baby oil, that process became exponentially worse and more exhausting. The oil would not wash off easily. It would stick to his skin and to his clothes. It would spread everywhere. One day, Andre confronted Savage directly. He did not yell or make a scene. He just grabbed Randy and squeezed him with such incredible force that the baby oil literally sprayed out of his pores like a water fountain. The oil went everywhere, covering both of them. Andre said, "No more grease, or I break you." The threat was delivered in a calm, matter-of-fact tone that made it crystal clear Andre was serious. Savage never wore that much baby oil again. From that day forward, Randy understood that Andre was not just dictating how men should wrestle. Andre was dictating how men should present themselves, how they should carry themselves, and what kind of respect they owed to their peers. The oil incident was not really about the oil. It was about Andre establishing that there were rules in his world, and if you broke those rules, there would be consequences. Some sources also suggest that Andre looked down on Savage's rumored use of performance-enhancing drugs. Andre believed that natural size, despite the pain it caused him, was the only honorable path. That belief informed everything Andre did and said in the locker room. He was willing to suffer for what he believed was right. Number 8. Ultimate Warrior and the Concrete Lesson. The Ultimate Warrior was a high-energy, incredibly muscular wrestler who became famous for his intense, wild persona both on and off camera. He was portrayed as an unstoppable force, a man who did not think, just acted on pure instinct and intensity. But in the locker room, the Warrior had a reputation for being stiff, which means his strikes were too hard and his maneuvers lacked the necessary care for his opponent's safety. Veterans frequently complained about the Warrior's recklessness, but very few were willing to actually confront the Warrior because he was big, he was strong, he did not understand the concept of selling, and he was not someone who took criticism well. He would get defensive. He would argue. He would deny that anything was wrong. Andre, however, was suffering from chronic back pain and limited mobility. His body was breaking down. But despite his physical limitations, Andre decided to give the Warrior a physical welcome to the reality of professional wrestling. During a tour, the Warrior kept running at Andre with dangerous levels of momentum, throwing himself forward with no regard for how Andre might be affected. No understanding of the concept that Andre was also an aging man with physical limitations. Andre gave him a warning. He pulled Warrior aside and told him to stop working so stiff, to control his momentum, to remember that they were working together, not against each other. The Warrior ignored it. Either he did not hear it or he did not care. The next night, as the Warrior charged at Andre at full speed, Andre simply held his massive fist out in front of him. He did not throw a punch. He did not wind up. He did not telegraph the move in any way. He just held his fist there, a stationary object in space. The Warrior ran full speed directly into it and knocked himself completely unconscious. Andre looked down at the fallen Warrior and said, "Now you learn." This story is not just about Andre being mean or cruel. It is about Andre enforcing ring safety and teaching a lesson about professional etiquette that the Warrior desperately needed to learn. In professional wrestling, a worker who is too stiff is a genuine liability to everyone around him. He can end careers. He can cause permanent injuries. He can damage the business that all of them depend on for their livelihood. By using the Warrior's own momentum against him, Andre taught a lesson that penetrated the Warrior's thick skull in a way that words never could. Physical consequences create understanding that lectures cannot. The Warrior reportedly took this lesson to heart and eventually learned to work with the necessary care and professionalism that the business demands. He realized that being strong did not mean you could hurt people. Being strong meant you had a responsibility to protect those you worked with. Number 9. Hulk Hogan and the hierarchy check. Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant had a relationship that defined the entire 1980s wrestling boom. Their match at WrestleMania 3 became the most iconic match in wrestling history, drawing more viewers than any wrestling event before or since. But their dynamic was created long before that moment, years before they stepped into the Pontiac Silverdome in front of millions of people. When Hogan was just a rising star, he had a burgeoning ego that grew bigger with each passing month. He was getting Hollywood roles. He was becoming a big star. He was starting to appear in movies and television shows outside of wrestling. He was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was bigger than the business itself. He was starting to think that the wrestling business needed him more than he needed the wrestling business. Andre made it his personal mission to ensure that Hogan understood his place in the hierarchy. That place was, in Andre's eyes, perpetually secondary to Andre himself. No matter how famous Hogan became, no matter how many movies he made, Andre was the supreme authority. During their early matches, Andre treated Hogan like a literal toddler. He would grab Hogan by the hair and pull him close, treating him like a parent would treat a misbehaving child. Then he would lean in and whisper in Hogan's ear, "Hogan, come here." After that, Andre would just manhandle Hogan, tossing him around like he was nothing, reminding him who was really the boss of professional wrestling. These moments were checks, tests of Hogan's humility and his understanding of the hierarchy. Andre was checking to see if the big movie star still had basic respect for the actual boss of professional wrestling. This early welcome was not a one-time thing. It was a years-long process of reinforcement. Every time they worked together, Andre reinforced the message. Every time they wrestled, Andre found a moment to make Hogan feel small. By the time they reached WrestleMania 3 in 1987, Hogan had internalized the lesson completely. He remained deeply deferential to Andre. Hogan has even admitted that if Andre had decided not to go up for the famous body slam that won the match, the entire moment would have failed. The match would have ended in disaster. The era might never have become what it became. Andre's years of Hogan come here welcomes created the exact circumstances that made the greatest wrestling moment of all time possible. That is the power of Andre's teaching methods. He understood that Hogan needed to respect him, not just fear him, if their feud was going to create real money and real emotion for the fans. Number 10. Jake the Snake Roberts in the 30-second fog. We started with this story, and now we finish with the complete tale of what really happened and why it mattered so much. Jake the Snake Roberts entered the World Wrestling Federation in the mid-1980s with a distinct, cerebral style that was completely unfamiliar to many of the veterans. Jake was cold, intense, and mysterious. He wrestled with his mind as much as his body. He moved slowly, deliberately, with a snake-like precision that contrasted sharply with the high-energy style that dominated the Federation. For Andre, Roberts was an enigma that required solving. Andre needed to know if Jake was man enough to stand up to the Giant's physical and psychological dominance. Andre needed to understand what made Jake tick, what made him different, what made him tick. The welcome came during a match when Andre pinned Jake flat to the mat, sitting directly on his chest. In this position of total dominance, with Jake helpless and unable to move, Andre unleashed a legendary amount of gas. It lasted for 30 seconds. 30 solid seconds of pure stench. Jake could not breathe. He was trapped in what he describes as a giant fog, suffocating, unable to escape, completely humiliated in front of the crowd and his peers. Every person in that arena was laughing at Jake. Every person in the locker room heard about it immediately. The story spread like wildfire. This was more than a juvenile prank. This was a serious physical test of Jake's composure under the most humiliating and uncomfortable circumstances imaginable. Would Jake break? Would Jake quit wrestling? Would Jake go to the office and complain? Would Jake become a target for more bullying? But here is what happened next, and this is the part that changed everything. Jake confronted Andre after the match. He was angry. He demanded respect. He stood up to the Giant face to face, and Andre respected that immensely. Andre respected that Jake did not accept the humiliation and take it lying down. He did not go cry in the locker room. He did not complain to management. He confronted the problem directly. By confronting Andre afterward, Jake proved that he was not just a performer playing a part. He was a man who demanded personal respect. He was willing to stand up to the biggest man in the world. That transition, from victim to best friend, became a common trajectory for everyone who passed Andre's tests. Jake and Andre became genuine best friends after that moment. They traveled together. They trained together. They looked out for each other on the road. The uncomfortable 30-second fog was actually Andre's way of filtering the herd, of ensuring that only men with real fortitude, real courage, real backbone could enter his inner circle. By standing up for himself, by refusing to accept humiliation, Jake proved he belonged. He proved he was made of the right stuff. He proved he understood what professional wrestling was really about. Andre the Giant was the conscience of professional wrestling during an era when the business was changing faster than anyone could have predicted. The landscape of the industry was shifting from regional territories to national federation. The business model was changing. The type of wrestler that was valuable was changing. New technology meant that wrestlers had to work different matches for television than they worked for live crowds. These 10 welcomes were not acts of cruelty, though they certainly seemed that way in the moment to the wrestlers experiencing them. They were a mixture of physical correction, psychological testing, and social bonding through extreme experiences. Andre used his unique physiology to create a space where he was the arbiter of truth and respect. For the modern reader, these stories might seem like simple bullying, like hazing that had no place in any profession. But in the context of the 1970s and 1980s, they were necessary rites of passage. The industry was changing. Old wrestling traditions were being replaced by superstars who only cared about their own brands and their own paychecks. They had no loyalty to the locker room. They had no respect for what came before them. They saw wrestling as a stepping stone to Hollywood, not as a sacred tradition. Andre the Giant was the anchor that held the entire industry to its traditions. He ensured that no matter how famous a man became, no matter how many Hollywood deals he signed, or how much money he made, he remained accountable to his peers. He remained part of something larger than himself. There was a code, and Andre was the keeper of that code. Rusimov's death in 1993 marked the end of an entire era of gatekeeping. Today, the professional wrestling locker room is a professionalized corporate environment. There are contracts and legal departments and human resources teams. There are strict rules about conduct and workplace safety. Union representatives attend meetings. Wrestlers have lawyers review every decision. The legends of Andre's welcomes remain a testament to a time when a 7'4" man from France was the conscience of the professional wrestling world, when one man's code of honor could shape an entire industry. Whether it was through a 30-second fog, a 100-beer challenge, or a hidden car wedged between two trucks, Andre the Giant ensured that every single man who stepped through the curtain knew exactly who the boss was and what the business really demanded from its performers. He was the eighth wonder of the world, and his welcome was the ultimate proof of a wrestler's worth. If you love these stories, comment with your favorite Andre welcome, and do not forget to give this video some hype to support the channel.